What's up, everyone? It's Jane here. You know what we're going to talk about, right? Yep. Today we'll try yoga. I'm actually very excited about this one. So let's get right into it. Afga- Afghanistan suicide bomb blast kills at least 19 in Kabul exam century. Police say the bomb went off at an education institute as an entrance exam was taking place. No one immediately claimed responsibility for the attack. At least 19 people have been killed and dozens more injured in a suicide bombing in the Afghan capital of Kabul, police say. The attack at an education institute happened as students took an entrance exam inside. Schools are usually closed in Afghanistan on Fridays. Afghanistan. Attacking Sylvan's target proves the enemy inhuman cruelty and lack of moral standards. Our teams have dispatched at the site of the blast to find out more details. My friend and I were able to move around 15 wound and 9 dead bodies from the explosion site. Other bodies were lying under chairs and tables inside the classroom. Many of those living in the nearby area are Hazara, an ethnic and mostly Shia minority who have been targeted in previous attacks. The bombing is the latest in a steady stream of violence since the Taliban seized power last August after the U.S. withdrawal. Since then, girls have been banned from secondary school education. In 2020, teenage students were among the 24 people killed in an attack claimed by Islamic State at an education center in western Kabul. The defendant attacked Paul Searing, 57, in February, several hours after he returned from the pub to their home in Harlow. The court heard a nurse who stabbed her husband to death as he lay in bed has been jailed for life. Rebecca Shearing, 52, who must serve 17 years in prison before she can be considered for parole, told a 99 call handler, "I have stabbed my husband twice." She has also sent a message to someone saying it's time to kill. She attacked Paul Shearing, 57, on 12 February, several hours after he returned from the pub to their home in Harlow, Essex, Chelmsford Crown Court heard. Judge Christopher Morgan said the defendant, who had also been drinking, helped her husband upstairs, then returned downstairs at their home in Raycroft. Shortly before 2:30 a.m., you took a knife in from the kitchen. You made your way upstairs and you stabbed your husband as he lay in bed. He says Shearing had later said, "Tonight I took my chance." The judge said the defendant's husband had presented no threat and in all probability he was asleep. He said Shearing had suggested that her husband call her worthless or useless. The judge said, "At whatever stage, those words were no justification for what you were to do later on." Shearing was found guilty of murder after an earlier 9-day trial. Ellen Compton, QC for the prosecution, read a statement from Mr. Shearing's sister Karen Kruku, in which she said he had worked hard as a cabinet maker and took pride in his work. She described him as a happy-go-lucky and football mad. He loved Tottenham Hotspur. Mr. Shearing, who had children, was an exceptionally loyal man, caring, warm, and kind. She described the defendant 99 call as chilling, adding she may have been a good nurse, but that doesn't make her a good person. Sasha was QC mitigating said the married couple had a complex relationship. She said she loved him despite the complexities of that relationship and she still loves him. Mr. Watts said it was a relationship that involved regular domestic violence. Sherry, who wore a gray prison-issue tracksuit, looked straight ahead as the judge sentenced her to life in jail. Man shot dead by police in South London was said to become father. Chris Kaba, who was in his 20s, died in hospital in the early hours of Tuesday morning after being shot about 10 p.m. on Monday night in Streatham Hill. A man who was shot dead by police after chase in South London was said to become a father, his fiancée Mothers has said. Chris Kaba, who was in his 20s, died in the hospital in the early hours of Tuesday morning after being shot at about 10 p.m. on Monday night in Streatham Hill. The police watchdog, which is investigating the incident, said a single round had been fired by armed officers. Metropolitan Police officers said they used a tactic where they deliberately crashed into a car in an attempt to bring the chase to an end in Crystal Gardens, a residential road. Some paying tribute at the scene said Mr. Kaba was a rapper known as Maddox or Matt, age 67, but Kim Alien, whose daughter was engaged to Mr. Kaba, said this was not true and that he had an apprenticeship to become an architect. She said he was so loved, he was so funny, he was super kind, crazy, he was always happy, he would do anything for you. He was a fiancé, he was due to get married in 5 months' time. He got a baby on the way that he's never going to see. It's horrible and so shocking and so sad. Questioned why police shot Mr. Kaba and added her daughter is in a tremendous amount of pain. She added she cannot process her feelings because it's a time of pain. It's a time of pain that you cannot explain. The baby is due in November. If that was a white boy, he would got a chance to get out of the car. Jefferson Balsala, who said he was Mr. Kaba's cousin, said the driver was a musician who went by the stage name Itch. He added he was a good person, a happy guy. He didn't deserve that. No one deserved that. No one deserves that. Nobody deserves to be shot by the police, whether they are a good person or a bad person. Police said Mr. Kaba received first aid from officers at the scenes before being taken to hospital, but he died at 12:16 a.m. A 39-year-old man who lives on nearby Newport Road and asked not to be named said the driver drove up Newport Road and turned up Crystal Garden. A police car came down Crystal Gardens and crashed into him. Another police car came in behind him and they had him locked in at the bottom of Crystal Gardens. The car was immobile when he was shot. Another witness told the Evening Standard that the man who was shot, driving an Audi, tried to ram his way past the police cars. Cordons are in place on Crystal Gardens and Newport Road with a forensic tent put up and officers gathering evidence at the scene. The Independent Office for Police Conduct, IOPC, said it had collected footage from police vehicles, a police helicopter, and officer body-worn video as part of its investigation into the incident. IOPC London Regional Director Salman Asim said, when the police use fatal force, it is important that there is a robust, independent investigation to establish all of the circumstances surrounding what happened. It is natural that the community wants answer quickly, but I would ask that people refrain from speculation that may be unhelpful to all those affected. I want to reassure everyone concerned by this incident that our investigators are working hard to establish the entire sequence of events which result in this man's death. Teenager stabbed to death and another critically ill after a highly worrying incident in East London. Two teenagers were found with stab wounds following a disturbance involving a large group of people in Lichfield Road in the East London borough of Tower Hamlets at about midnight on Sunday. A teenager have been stabbed to death, and another is critically ill in hospital after a highly worrying incident. Scotland Yard said they found two males with stab wounds after being called to a disturbance around midnight involving a large group of people in Lichfield Road, Tower Hamlets, East London. A murder investigation is now underway, but no arrests have been made yet, said police. The teenager who died, believed to be aged 17, was pronounced dead at 1:54 a.m. on Sunday. The second man taken to the hospital is thought to be 18. Detective Chief Inspector Mark Rogers of the Met Specialist Crime Command said this is a highly worrying incident that has left one young man dead and another fighting for his life in hospital. I'm aware of reports saying that about 100 people armed with weapons were involved. The information does not appear to be wholly accurate. We know a significant number of people were caught up in this incident, but not necessarily directed, involved, or armed with weapons. The force said it has yet to arrest anyone in connection with the stabbing. Anyone who has information that can help, including pictures or footage of the incident, is asked to call the Metropolitan Police Major Incident Room on 020-8345-3715, quoting reference Operation Wildcat. Alternative, call Crime Stoppers anonymously on 0800-555 and 111. The incident man shot dead in West London. The incident comes hours after a boy believed to be 12 was stabbed in the East London borough of Newham. Meanwhile, police have arrested a 29-year-old man on suspicion of murder following the death of a man in West Kensington in London. Officers were called to Kensington High Street at about 2 a.m. on Sunday. They found a man believed to be in his 20s with gunshot wounds and provided emergency first aid until the arrival of the London Ambulance Service and London Air Ambulance. The man was taken to a central London hospital where he later died. Man uses his car to stop out of control vehicle with ill driver on busy motorway. John Barlow said he thought the driver was dead when he first noted the Audi in the outside lane of the M62 going slower and slower. A motorist has described the dramatic moment he used his car to stop another vehicle whose driver had fallen seriously ill at the wheel on a busy motorway. John Barlow thought the other driver was dead when he saw the car heading slowly along the overtaking lane of the M62 near Leeds on Saturday. Fearing a crash, he managed to get his Hyundai in front of the ill driver's Audi and then take his foot off the accelerator and bring the car behind to a stop. He was then able to get out and help the man, who was barely breathing. After trying to break into the locked vehicle using his elbow, Mr. Barlow was helped by a tradesman with a hammer to get access to the stricken middle-aged driver, and then tie his head back to free his airway. Others then stopped to help, including a doctor on the other carriageway of the M62 would travel to the next junction, turn around, then battle through the backup traffic to get to work with a defibrillator. Mr. Barlow, a 59-year-old martial arts instructor from Middleton, Greater Manchester, told the PA news agency he had first noted the 80 in the outside lane going slower and slower and pull alongside. He said he looked dead at the wheel. I could see his lips were blue and he had blood trickling down his face. His head was tilting forward. I thought, oh my God, I got to stop him. I matched his speed, then eased my way in front of him, and then slowly took my foot off the accelerator. He was driving his wife, Chrisley, and son, Joey, 7, to pick up a new kitten in Pontefract, West Yorkshire, and his son in the back screamed as the runaway car behind bumped into him. I guess the car behind was going 30 miles. He hit my car a couple of times and then we came to a stop, he said. Other drivers stopped at the scene, bringing the 4-lane carriageway to a halt. And a FISO and an off-duty female police officer took over the first aid until paramedics arrived. Mr. Barlow said everyone was amazing. It was a real team effort. They got the man on the floor. Then the doctor jumped in as well. The next day, Mr. Barlow received a call from West Yorkshire police thanking him, and he was told the driver has suffered a seizure but was well enough to go home. And he asked for people to think about taking a first aid course and having something in their car that could be used to break a window in an emergency. Florida man had arm bitten off in alligator attack before getting lost in woods for 3 days. She dragged me under 3. A Florida man who had his arm ripped off by an alligator as he swam across a lake has offered some advice, saying leave them gators alone. Eric Marta from Sarasota was taken to hospital after the attack at Lake Manatee Fish Camp in Mayaka City in the U.S. state on 17 July. Now out of hospital and adjusting to life without his arm, he has spoken about the scary incident which saw him maimed by the alligator and wander around lost for 3 days. He said he came across the lake and decided to swim across instead of walk around it. I looked over and there's a gator on my right-hand side, so I went to swim. And she got my forearm. So I grabbed her like this. She was trying to roll, but she snapped my head, so my arm went backwards completely, Mr. Marta said. He said he had to fight for his life. She dragged me under 3 times. She already got my arm, so when we came up the 3rd time, she finally did a death roll and took off with my arm. He managed to get out the lake, but then spent 3 days trying to find his way. You can't see anything. Sometimes I feel like I was walking in circles. I didn't know. So I started following the sun and power lines, stuff like that, things I could see. After 3 days in the swamp, he said he stumbled on a fence and a man on the other side. I said, hey man, I need some help. And he says, what are you doing? And I said, a gator got my arm. And now he's adapting to a new normal with a new perspective. And he has some alligator-based advice. Do not feed the gators alright, and you guys know who you are. Throwing rocks at them and stuff. I've seen it on the job sites. Leave them gators alone, he said. Man, 23, admits killing Canadian teenager he met on dating app. Ashley Westward moved to the UK only 3 months before she was stabbed to death by her boyfriend. A 23-year-old man from Essex has admitted to murdering his teenage Canadian girlfriend. Jack Sippel killed 19-year-old Ashley Westworth from Vernon in British Columbia at a house in Chelmsford in February after meeting her on a dating app. Officers were called to an address in Tennyson Road shortly after 4 p.m. on 1 February after reports of a disturbance. Paramedics tried to save Miss Westmore, but she was pronounced dead at the scene. An inquest hearing was told that she died of stab wounds to the chest. In a brief hearing at Chelmsford Crown Court, several barristers said a psychiatrist had indicated that the defendant was fit to plead. Christopher Paxton, QC for Seppel, said that the issue of fitness is now resolved and requests that the defendant be asked to enter a plea. The court clerk read the single charge of murder and Seppel, standing in the secure dock in a long white sleeve top with tattoos on his face and hand, replied, "I'm guilty." Judge Christopher Morgan told Seppel, "By your plea of guilty to murder, there's only one sentence that can be passed, and that's a life sentence." He remanded the defendant in custody until the date if found for sentencing. Mr. Westworth moved to Chelmsford in November 2021. She wrote on Facebook. Earlier this year, she posted photos online of her amazing trip to London, where she had been sightseeing. London therapist accused by sister of stealing from rich mother tells court of threatening relationship. Jonathan Phil from Kilburn, northwest London, told Southwark Crown Court, "My mother liked to wear fashionable clothes. She liked to wear skinny jeans and she liked to wear jackets, and she would shop everywhere." A therapist accused by his sister of stealing from their wealthy mother's bank account has told a court of their threatening relationship he has with his sibling. Jonathan Field denied 2 charges of theft from his 89-year-old mother, who is reportedly suffering from significant cognitive decline, in a private prosecution from his sister, Louise Radley. Phil, 62, appeared at Southwark Crown Court after being accused of taking more than £1.5 million of Hannah's life savings once she became too ill to look after her financial affairs. The London therapist has now been cleared of stealing £1.3 million from a joint Swiss bank account in his and Mr. Phil's names between May 2015 and November 2017. Judge Geoffrey Parents directed the court jury to return a not guilty verdict after saying, as a matter of law, it is not illegally theft to effectively steal from yourself. Phil denies further charges of their relating to almost £270,000 allegedly stolen from his mother, Irisel Bank Lumley account. This sum is thought to have been taken through withdrawal of cash with ATMs, using Mr. Phil's credit cards for shopping express and making bank transfers between October 2014 and September 2017. Our relationship is non-existent, Phil offered evidence of a fraught relationship with his sister by telling the court how he was banned from her home around 2006 and that their relationship has since gone worse. Phil from Kilburn, northwest London, described their relationship as fraught, frightening, and non-existent. However, he has an excellent relationship with his mother, who he visits up to 8 times a year in Tel Aviv, Israel, where she retired with her late husband Monty, who died in 2010. Phil had worked for the family clock and watched film before becoming a therapist and said his parents were extremely generous to him and his sister. He told the jury his mother, who had supported him through his drug addiction in his 20s, was not a miser and spent her money freely, was also helping the siblings purchase properties. Mr. Phil liked to have at least £500 in cash and often gave money and presents to the accused son and the daughter of his current partner. Phil told the court, "My mom would shop everywhere." Prosecutor Adam Gart reservedly implied to jurors that it was unlikely Mr. Phil has been responsible for a magical mystery tour of spending during a trip to London in April and July 27, with transaction totally out of keeping with the expenditure of a lady in her advanced years. But her son denied all thief allegations, saying, "My mother liked to wear fashionable clothes, she liked to wear skinny jeans, and she liked to wear jackets, and she would shop everywhere. She would buy presents for other people, flowers, chocolates, jewelry for herself very rarely." He added she would buy perfumes and skin creams of a specific make and brand she liked. The trial continues. Pilot who threatened to crash intentionally in Mississippi had no license and faces terror charges. Corey Wayne Patterson is arrested after a plane comes down near Ripley, Mississippi nearly 5 hours after an emergency call was made to police, with the pilot threatening to crash into a Walmart store in Tupelo. Final suspect in Canada mass stabbing has died. Miles Sanderson and his brother Damon, who was found dead on Monday, were suspected of killing 10 people and injuring 18 others in one of the deadliest attacks in Canada modern history. The final suspect in the recent mass stabbing in and around a Canadian reserve has died after being run off the road. Police have confirmed Miles Sanderson, 32, was found near the town of Western in the Central Province as officers respond to reports of a stolen vehicle after being driven by a man armed with a knife. The Royal Canadian Mounted Police (RCMP) said officer rammed Sanderson's vehicle off the road into a ditch, and he was taken into custody, but went into what a spokeswoman described as medical distress. He was taken to hospital but died shortly afterwards. 10 people were killed and 18 injured after the attacks in and around the James Smith Coronation community in the Central Province on Sunday. 10 victims remain in hospital, 3 of them in a critical condition. At a press conference confirming Miles Sanderson's death, RCMP Assistant Commissioner Rhonda Blackmore said he had visited James Smith Coronation home to 9 of 10 victims and said many of them had witnessed incredible trauma. Many people haven't slept, she said. They told me every time I close my eye, I hear noises. I hope this gives them some sense of closure, and that they can rest easier tonight knowing Miles is no longer at large. I know they are able to start healing. Hundreds of police officers under, undertook an intensive manhunt for suspect Miles and his brother Damon Sanderson, who had fled the crime scenes. Damon was found dead in the grassy areas of James Smith Coronation on Monday, with injuries police and said were not self-inflicted. Miles Sanderson, who officers described as armed and dangerous, remained on the loose until Wednesday afternoon. The stabbing rampage on Sunday was one of the deadliest attacks in Canada's modern history. Police said some of the victims appeared to have been targeted, while others were attacked at random. Officers would have not revealed a possible motive, but a statement from an indigenous group from the province suggests the stabbing could be drug-related. But Ms. Blackmore said, unfortunately, now that Miles is decayed, we may never have an understanding as to that motivation. Questions are beginning to be asked about why Miles Sanderson, with 59 convictions and a long history of violence, was out on the street. The 32-year-old was released by a parole board in February while serving a sentence of more than 4 years on charges that include assault and robbery, but he had been wanted by police since May, apparently for violating the terms of his release. Unveiled students returned to school for the first time after a mass shooting that killed 21st. I want to just shelter her as a mom, just keep her home. But of course I don't want her to live in fear, said the mother of one student in Texas community. Students and teachers returned to school Tuesday in the heartbroken community of Uvalde, Texas, for the first time since 19 children and 2 educators were killed during a mass shooting at an elementary school in May. As children return to the classroom, the town continues to mourn those who were killed and demand accountability in deadly shooting at Robb Elementary School, during which law enforcement officers waited more than an hour before entering a 4th-grade classroom where the gunman carried out the attack. The first day brought anguish for parents whose children died in the massacre. Stephen Gracia, whose 9-year-old daughter Elena was killed, said he was an emotional wreck Tuesday morning and felt a surge of anger. I couldn't find the tears, but then I thought back to my Ellie and know she wouldn't want me to feel that way, he wrote in a post on social media. Thinking of all the first day of school with my Ellie, no one expects to have to bury their child after leaving them at school, he said in another post. Jennifer Lugo, Ellie's mother, said in a post the night before the first day of school that her stomach was in a big knot, and she was sure the family would be leaving the house with tears and not smiles. I'm missing one of my babies, she said, adding that Ellie loved school and was always excited to get up and get ready with her sister. Kimberly and Felix Rubio, whose daughter Lexi was killed, said ahead of the first day of school that they were frightened for their for their 5 other children. I don't know that the school district has done everything that I would like to see as far as security measures, but I also know it's important for the kids to have some sort of routine, so trying to balance what's best for them, Kimberly said. Lexi has been on her mind, she said, and meeting her youngest son's teacher was incredibly difficult. It's incredibly difficult to go on campus knowing that Lexi is not going to be meeting a teacher this year, Kimberly said. Students across the state were marooned to school Tuesday is part of the UVA community. Robb Elementary has not reopened since the shooting, and its surviving student has been scattered to different schools in the area. The school district also added virtual options this year for parents who didn't feel comfortable sending their children back into classroom. Parents arriving at some local school Tuesday morning were greeted with taller fences, increased security, and cameras, a large law enforcement presence, more counselors, and even emotional support dogs. Outside Dalton Elementary School in Uville, Esther said that one of her children had attended Robb Elementary at the time of the shooting and had received counseling because she was traumatized. But Natalie, whose children are 7 and 8 years old, says she felt safer with the added security measure. I'm on the positive side, so I hope that what happened last year won't happen again, she said. For right now, I think they are in good hands. Pre-kindergarten teacher Belinda Remides says she wasn't nervous about the start of the school year in the shadow of the tragedy. She's happy that school is starting again, but also just a bit sad for the kids, she said. Her nephew attended Robb Elementary last school year. We asked him and he just stayed quiet, so I know he's a bit nervous, but we are happy that school is starting back up, and when we start, I think it will get all better, she said. We have to just continue to move forward. Late last month, Uville School Police Chief Pete Arredondo was fired by the Texas City's school board, which voted unanimously to oust him. The embattled chief removed capped 3 months of outrage over the botched law enforcement response to the shooting at Robb Elementary. 1 hour, 14 minutes, and 8 seconds passed from the time police entered the building May 24 until the gunman was killed, Texas Department of Public Safety Director Steve McCraw has said. A scathing report released in July by Texas House Committee investigating the mass shooting found systemic failures and poor decision making by law enforcement and the school district. And her husband Julio have made helping their 10-year-old daughters return to school a priority. The girl, Madison, was at Robb Elementary the day of the shooting. The family has enrolled Madison in a private school, which they say made safety upgrades after the shooting. I want to just shelter her as a mom and just keep her home, but of course, I don't want her to live in fear, she said. Here's what you need to know about Liz Truss, Britain's new leader. Sometime compared to the UK's first female leader, Margaret Thatcher, Truss has also been accused of being a political killman. London as a girl and a young woman, Liz Truss protests against then Prime Minister Margaret Thatcher and called for the abolition of the monarchy. Decades later, having risen through the ranks of Thatcher's Conservative Party, Truss, 47, on Tuesday was appointed to the United Kingdom Prime Minister by Queen Elizabeth II. As she headed to No 10 Downing Street, Truss looks eager to rule in the image of the famously blunt and strong-willed iconoclast whose legacy still divides this country. Her victory means she will become the country's third female leader, after Thatcher and Theresa May. The Iron Lady, as Thatcher was known, was the 20th century longest-serving British leader and birthed an ideology, Thatcherism, that still dominates the party with its low tax, high-growth economic liberalism. Serving as primer from 1979 to 1990, when she was forced to resign by her own government. Thatcher was a strident coal warrior and a supporter of free markets, and especially close to President Ronald Reagan, one of the Britain's most divisive prime minister, revile and revere in almost equal measure to this day. She's best known for her policies. She's best known for her policy on deregulation, privatizing state-owned companies, and smashing the power of unions. She died in 2013. Whether international or not, observers and the public have pointed out Truss appears to have a habit of recreating iconic Thatcher public appearance. While serving as Foreign Secretary, Truss was accused of consciously mirroring Thatcher by posing in a Challenger 2 tank while visiting British troops in Estonia. A famous picture of Thatcher in a Challenger tank in Germany in 1986. When visiting Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov at the Kremlin in February, she wore a fox for hat that again was compared to that worn by Thatcher on a Russia trip in 1987. During the Conservative leadership contest, Truss wore an outfit strikingly similar to one Thatcher had worn for an election broadcast in 1979, a black blazer and a white shirt with a bow tie at the front. For Truss critics, the similarities to Thatcher's are the best premature and worst ludicrous. I don't think there is anything in it. They're completely different people. Truss supporter Andrea Andino, 55, insisted outside the venue where Truss was announced the new leader of the Conservative Party on Monday. Andino wore a t-shirt in Liz with Truss. She's different. I don't think she will follow Thatcher in any way, she added. Timothy Kirkhope, a Conservative member of the upper chamber of the British Parliament, also dismissed the comparison, but for different reasons. I regard any comparison between Truss and Thatcher as derisory, he said in an email. I worked as a government whip under Margaret Thatcher. She was a colossus in politics. There is absolutely no way that Truss could ever get anywhere near the achievements of Thatcher, he said. Truss herself complained to BBC Radio 4 in July that women tend to get compared to Thatcher whether they resemble her or not. I'm on my own person, she said. James Cleverly, who served as education minister under Boris Johnson, echoes these sentiments. She's a woman in politics, though comparisons are inevitable, and he said, she is Liz Truss, she's her own person. To those of us who have studied Thatcher, she's hardly in the same league, at least on current form, said Professor Tim Bell, an expert on British politics and the Conservative Party at Queen Mary University of London. While Thatcher was regarded then and now was a conviction politician who embodied her beliefs, Truss had been accused of being a political chameleon, flip-flopping on major policies and criticized for lacking hard and fast principles. She was an activist for the centrist Liberal Democrat Party as a college student. We do not believe people are born to be ruled, she said while arguing passionately for the abolition of the monarchy at the party conference in 1994, a testament to just how far she has traveled politically. Truss campaigned for Britain to remain in the European Union, only flip side and later support Brexit once the country has voted to leave in 2016. The commitment to Brexit and unlocking its supposed benefits is now a core pillar of her platform, an attitude that could lead to a heated and expensive legal battle with the European Union and the Republic of Ireland over the complex of Northern Ireland Protocol. While Truss said during the Brexit referendum campaign that Britain shouldn't spend years in massive divorce from Europe, she may be about to preside over exactly this. Born in Norfolk in 1975, Mary Elizabeth Truss is the daughter of John Kenneth, a math professor at the University of Leeds, and Priscilla Truss, a nurse. In the biography section of her website, she described her parents as left-wing. When she was 4, the family relocated to Paisley, a town near Glasgow in Scotland. They moved again in 1985 to the northern English city of Leeds in West Yorkshire. Truss frequently refers to herself as a Yorkshire woman. A falsy attempt to contract her upbringing with the largely affluent Southern English background of many conservative members and activists. Throughout her leadership campaign, Truss said her vision of conservatism was inspired by seeing fellow students at the local public high school struggling in an overly bureaucratic filling system. Many of the children I was at school with were let down by low expectations, poor education standards, and a lack of opportunity, she said at her leadership launch July 14. Former student and staff at Raleigh and also local politicians dispute Truss' portrayal, accusing her of unfairly meddling the school for political gain. It is located in one of the most affluent areas of Leeds, and it certainly could never be described fairly as a sink school, he said via email, referring to British terminology for a failing and underachieving school. Her contentions about her deprived background as the daughter of the university professor are a load of nonsense, Crihope said. After graduating from Oxford in 1969, she abandoned the Liberal Democrats and joined the Conservative Party, the dismay of her left-leaning father. He was quite horrified, she told the Times newspaper in 2012. After college, Truss worked as a graduate trainee accountant for the energy giant Shell and later the telecommunications company Cable and Wireless. In 2000, she married fellow accountant Hugh O'Leary, and they have 2 daughters. After a youth on the center-left university prime Truss for conservation to the right. I met Tories and I realized that they didn't have 2 heads and were actually good people, she told the Daily Mail in 2019. Truss stood as a Tory candidate in the election of 2001 and 2005, losing both times. It would take another 5 years before she was finally elected as the MP for South West Norfolk. Truss has served in various cabinet positions since 2012 under the governments of David Cameron, Theresa May, and Johnson. It was under Johnson that she was promoted to foreign minister, one of the most powerful positions in government. Truss was leading the transitions to a post-Brexit trading rim and forging new diplomatic ties. The Conservative Party may have ditched Johnson, but his brand of populism looks set to stay under the new prime minister. She stayed loyal to Johnson. She told the membership that they want to hear on the economy and taxations rather than any hard truths. She is a fierce Brexiteer and an anti-woke warrior, Bell said. Truss may be compared to Thatcher, but her critics believe she has much more in common with her predecessor. I regret that a Liz Truss premiership would be a continuation of the Boris Johnson style, Kipper said. A Truss government would be even more divisive and individuals who are notable only for their extreme or eccentric view, he said. Steve Bannon expected to face state indictment in New York. The Manhattan DA office had opened an investigation into Bannon in connection with his role in a charity that was supposed to use private funds to build the U.S.-Mexico border wall. Almost 2 years after he received a pardon from President Donald Trump in a federal fraud case, Steve Bannon is expected to face state indictment in New York. In a segment first shared with NBC News on Tuesday night, Bannon said New York has now decided to pursue phony charges against me 60 days before the midterm election. This is nothing more than a Persian political weaponization of the criminal justice system, added Bannon, who once was the chief White House strategist in the Trump administration. The statement came after the Washington Post, citing people familiar with the situation, reported that Bannon planned to surrender Thursday. NBC News has asked the Manhattan District Attorney Office for comment. The district attorney office last year opened an investigation into Bannon in connection with his role in a charity that was supposed to use private funds to build the U.S.-Mexico border wall, NBC News reported in February 2021. The previous year, Bannon was indicted with 3 other people on charges of taking money donated to help build a wall along the southern border. Federal prosecutors alleged that Bannon's We Build the Wall campaign, which raised more than $25 million, defrauded hundreds of thousands of donors who contributed to an effort to build a wall along the U.S.-Mexico border, one of Trump's key campaign promises. Trump pardoned Bannon in January 2021, but presidential pardons apply only to federal charges, meaning New York is not prohibited from pursuing similar charges. I am proud to be a leading voice on protecting our borders, and building a wall to keep our country safe from drugs and violent criminals, Bannon said in Tuesday night's statement. They are coming after all of us, not only President Trump and myself. I am never going to stop fighting. In fact, I have not yet begun to fight. They will have to kill me first. Separately, Bannon was convicted of contempt of Congress after he refused to answer questions from the House January 6 committee. A jury found him guilty on 2 counts of contempt of Congress in July. A woman jumped from a moving car after being kidnapped by a man who asked for water, authorities say. Jeremy Alaska, 31, is accused of holding the woman at knife point in Washington state. Authorities in Washington state identified a suspect Tuesday who they say carjacked a woman and held her at knife point until she escaped by jumping from a moving car. The woman had given water to Jeremy Alaska, 31, after he approached her vehicle asking for some in an incident that began in Vancouver, Washington. Early Saturday, the Clark County Sheriff's Office said in a news release. Alaska is expected to be charged with kidnapping, robbery, and attempt eluding after he fled from officers, the sheriff's office said. The woman, who has not been identified, told authorities after she gave Alaska water, she allowed him into her car. Alaska produced a knife and used the threat of violence to take control of the car, the release alleged, adding that he drove roughly 15 miles to the city of Camas. Alaska slowed down on a dirt road, authorities said, and the woman jumped from the car and started banging on the doors of the nearby homes. A resident, James Wood, told NBC affiliate KGW of Portland, Oregon, that he and his family awoke around 4:30 a.m. to the sound of a woman pounding on the back door of his home and moving the doorknob. She was desperate to get in, which I can't understand. Wood told the station. She told me that someone tried to kill her and someone stole her car. Was 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 told the station that he called 911 after deputies searched the area and found the car. The driver fled, according to the release. 11 minutes later, and about 8 miles away, authorities from the sheriff's office and the Vancouver Police Department were able to pin the car. And the release says Alaska was taken into custody after he tried to flee the vehicle. The release says he refused to provide his name and was identified through other names. The sheriff's office says it wasn't immediately clear whether he has a lawyer to speak on his behalf. Police say that they have found.
Turning now to breaking news in the investigation of that missing Memphis jogger and mother of two. Police confirmed today the body of 34-year-old Eliza Fletcher has.
Police say that they have found the remains of the missing jogger Eliza Fletcher. Memphis authorities have confirmed a body found during the search for Eliza Fletcher was identified as the 34-year-old woman who was abducted during a run Friday morning. NBC News just Chris reports on the news details police have released and the latest charges against the suspect charged with kidnapping Fletcher. And that is the end for today. Hope you guys enjoy this video, and I'll see you guys in the next video. See ya. Oh, and by the way, all the tips I gave you last time, I hope it worked, because it worked for me, and I think that it worked for most people with average memory. I myself have average memory, and I couldn't learn anything besides English, because I hate everything. I hate every subject besides English. The only thing that I find English is interesting because it was another language, and I hate math. I hate math. I especially hate math, and I don't want to, calculate anything, and I not good at calculating things. So that's why I hate math. And about English is that when I was small, when I was about 9 years old, I watched Disney Channel a lot, and that is when I know I like English, because Disney Channel is all about English. If you don't understand English, so yeah, I watch it, and although I don't understand a word it was saying about what is the movie about and what it's called, I just remember the melody. Phineas the Verb, right? I just remember that the song in the intro song, right from the start. I remember the melody, the way they pronounce, but I don't know for sure how they pronounce it. So I just remember the melody and I sing along. So that is when I remember all the stuff and all the words that I accidentally remember by remembering the melody. So when I said that music can help you a lot, I mean it. So if you guys try it, and if you have any, positive resolve, comment below, and follow for more if you like my tips and you find it effective. So yeah, thank you and goodbye. Oh, one more thing. I also like English, and I only good at speaking, and I'm not good at grammar. Yeah, I also not good at grammar. I only good at speaking because I can, mumbling to the sound, and you know, like for example, they sing like what's going on, so I will like mama mama. I remember the sound. I don't remember what they're saying, and I don't know what they're saying, but I remember the sound. So when I grow up, it means when I was in secondary school or something like that, I learned it and I know, oh, so that's what it is, that what it was about, and yeah, that's how I learned it. And I only good at speaking because I remember the basic words, the basic step that they say. For example, hello, how are you? How are you today? You're good? Are you good? How are you today? I'm good. Thank you for asking. You know, like just basic stuff, and I get better and better through movies. Yeah. So yeah, that's all I got. I don't know if I could help you with that, but I think for myself, I'm getting better, and you have to learn. You you cannot learn English without learning it. You know, without actually learning it. So you have to put time and effort into learning stuff, and eventually it will come out great. It will get you a positive result and a, a very good result that you want. So don't give up and don't lose trust in yourself, especially when you find it hard. Just took a break. Just take a break and you know get some air, go outside, have fun with your friends for a day if you're feeling stressed about studying stuff, and after that you get it together and yeah, just study, dude. That's it.